You're listening to the Galaxy Poet Podcast, a new digital platform centered around art, the creative process, and creative solutions to problems facing our world. I am your host, Jordan Ferreira. Let's begin. Welcome to episode 6 of the Galaxy Poet Podcast. My guest today is Grammy Award-winning drummer Thomas Pridgen, who's performed with critically acclaimed artists such as the Mars Volta, Snoop Dogg, Residente, and many, many others. He's someone that I think has a really fascinating kind of insight and perspective on music, the entertainment industry, and a whole lot of other things. So I'm really excited to be talking to him, and I want to welcome Thomas Pridgen. What's up, Thomas? Thank you for doing this, man. I'm good, man. So I wanted to talk to you because I think you have a really, really interesting take on some of the things that I see go on in the entertainment industry and especially music. And I feel like I really want to hear where your thoughts are as far as the current model and sort of like how things are for an artist, an up-and-coming artist trying to maybe break the mold, do something interesting, and the challenges to that. So I'm wondering if you can speak as to like what it's like, maybe what some of your frustrations are, and if there's an alternative way to sort of sustain a career as an artist, not following that rule, you know?
Well, I think the model that we've had has to be updated because we're dealing with we've had a pandemic and we've had just so many changes during the pandemic. Not being able to play shows or tour. That model. Just go on the road. Let's see how you make it on the road with other people. Let's see how you do with a crowd. How many people are going to come? That kind of idea right now is not existent. Just due to COVID, and you can't really travel, and you can't play shows, and you can't get thousands of people in a room. So now everybody's having to switch over to this internet based, sell everything on the internet. So it's really difficult. And I'm not sure what this is going to be. This is like the longest we've been in it. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. But I haven't really been seeing that many new projects drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be honest with you. And I think a lot of it has to do with maybe I'm not looking at the internet as much as I should, or it's getting swallowed by the algorithm of an election. You know what I mean? We've had an election for a whole year.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I see new artists, I'm just not seeing or hearing all the records that people are putting out, and I don't see it making as much headroom as it was making before when everything was open. You would hear bands pop up out of nowhere and you see videos and all kind of stuff, and a lot of that had to do with people just being able to, do productions, bigger productions, and videos. You can get more people together, and travel was different. Right now, I don't really know what this looks like. I just, now we have a new president. And so I think that I hope that stuff starts opening up. I know some states are opening up where they can play.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of a dent. I don't know if it's doing the same kind of damage that it was doing before. I feel like it was way much more easier.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting point. And I think what you say about the internet and sort of the algorithm aspect of at least temporarily during COVID, it's true. I mean, I've seen a few interesting things come up on YouTube and recommended feeds, but I don't think it's not what I would have hoped for, in terms of new music and stuff like that. But I wanted to ask you as well, with this whole trend of new music, especially, in pop, but also with rock music, I feel like at this point you can turn on rock radio and what you basically hear is dance music. And you hear synths, you hear all programmed drums. It's rare to even hear live instrumentation. Sometimes you do, but most of the time I feel like you don't. So I'm wondering, do you think that's a trend that's just going to permeate every genre at this point? Or do you think that's something that's in some ways a fad? Or is there going to be a return to more live kind of instrumentation based music?
Well, I mean, it was turning into that before COVID. It was turning into the kind of situation where we were in a situation where everybody was already like that, where everybody was doing a lot of electronic. One of the biggest records here in my city is from the guy named Fantastic Negrito, and
Yes.
his whole record is programmed drums.
Hmm.
He's on Grammy 3 with
He's
the
brilliant.
and he has like 3 Grammys, and all of those drums are programmed, and
Wow.
it's a blues record. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like, I mean, I just think that people are, doing what they have, and if I think his thing was he started off with something and it just worked. And so
yeah,
he just stuck to it. And that's cool. And I just think that like certain people, they just, it's easier for them to do that because they don't have to get so much, you don't have to get so many people. They don't have to find a drummer. They don't have, maybe not have to find a guitar place to record guitars to get that sound.
yeah.
Some people just don't. They just do what they have, especially at this time. And for when it comes to like the radio, man, the radio is always gonna like, especially radio. I mean, I imagine rock radio just trying to stick with the hip hop stations. The hip hop stations are killing the rock stations.
They are.
So just for the trying to aspect of trying to keep up, they have to update their style.
Yes.
And a lot of bands also, they just sound like electronic bands. You know what I mean? A lot of lo-fi sounding drums and a lot of synth bass, not a lot of distortion guitars.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think overall music has made such a different change with hip hop. Hip hop is, the idea of being able to get in one box and have all these sounds. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
changed the idea of music. And then the music, the instrument companies, they didn't really help it. Guitar Center, just the way they promote. Like,
Yes.
these people just promote people who are just old. So
Who
the
are
guys
old?
who are young, yeah, they're old. It's like, we seen companies promote musicians that was been dead for years. You know what I mean? They're
Right.
like, oh, it's a signature guitar from this dead guy. It's like, okay, well, what about Jordan? What about
Yeah.
Tosin? What about, and it forces us to have to do our own thing because they're so backdated. They over here, it's like they're fans of the people that they promote, and
Yeah.
they don't really understand that they have an opportunity to actually make a lot of musicians famous,
Yeah.
but they don't. They just like, oh man, this guy was the best drummer in 1964. Let's give him
Right.
another snare because this
Yeah. Right.
guy who's 50, this guy who's for snares because he's a fan. And so it's like, if the instrument companies don't promote younger artists, and then what ends up happening is the younger people gravitate towards music that's done by young people, and it's not done by young people are not playing instruments in the same way they were. From
Yes.
schooling not having music to like, New Orleans used to have people in the streets just playing everywhere. Now they're closed, you know what I mean? Or people just living in smaller places where they can't necessarily have those instruments anymore. All of it comes together, and then just the way I hold a lot to the instrument companies because they could have promoted to young people.
Yes.
They could make things cool. You know what I mean? But they didn't. I don't know. They kind of make something be like a niche. Like playing an instrument is like a niche thing. Like everybody's not playing instruments.
Right.
So, but everybody loves music. So the person who can figure out a way to make people feel like they're making music without having to study or without having to do as much as you have to do to learn all the instruments is gonna win. So you got the introduction of like Fruity Loops, and then like Reason, and then like Logic, which is much better, or not much better, but much more interactive as far as like playing.
Yeah.
Or like Ableton now. People could just sit at their house and like they got programs that'll give you the chords. You just drag the chord down. You know what I mean? They don't gotta play. So
Yeah.
it's like I just watched this whole video with Victor Wooten, and he was like, he didn't like to practice. He said he didn't like to practice, but his brothers did, and that's why he was able to get good. Because
Wow.
he was like, kids, they don't want to practice with it. They don't want to practice playing video games. They just want to play. And
Right.
I was like, okay, I could see that. But I was always liking to practice, so maybe I'm a niche person too.
Interesting. I think that point you make about instrument companies is really interesting, and I want to go more into that. But I also think that like what you say extends to the rock world in general. Like I'm curious to hear because this is kind of what I'm thinking, and I'd like to hear your take on it. But my feeling is that the reason the rock has kind of vanished from the mainstream has a lot to do with rock bands and rock musicians, like not attempting at all to kind of do something that's new and exciting and different, and like just kind of sticking to that same formula and doing the same shit again and again and again. Like, I feel like culturally there's always going to come a point where that's just no longer, I don't want to say relevant, but that's no longer sort of what people want to hear. It's not exciting. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I would, I play, traditional like bebop jazz, and I'm that guy who, when I look at the guys who I would consider jazzers, I feel like they're like that. Like they have the idea of jazz, and they will never move away from this idea of jazz, from the sound to the instrument to the crowd to the places you play.
Right.
Like it's been like this last 5 to 10 years where guys were like, I'm a jazz musician, but I'm at a rock festival. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's
right.
like that's been like a new thing, and it's been other musicians that's been jazz musicians that played in other genres, but just like a super resurgence of people who, are jazz players playing in a whole different arena.
Yeah.
But before, people were, traditionalists, and I feel like rock players a lot of times are just traditionalists, and you also have labels, who control the rock world because it's expensive to do those records. So if they see Muse is doing something and it's working, they're gonna tell you to do an eight song album. They did an EP and it was an album. It was like 7 songs, and then you start seeing a lot of bands do that where it was just like, where's all the songs?
Yeah.
And so it just depends on your direction. I just think it has a lot to do with just sonic. Like even more than that, it's just sonic. Like if you start hearing 808s all the time, you start hearing like Young Thug and 808s, and then you start hearing Skrillex and he's putting 808s and everything, and then you start hearing all the, Basek, he's putting 808s and everything. You start hearing everybody Metro Boomin and his whole name is 808s. It's like you get used to a certain sound. So that sound, if you hear a record, if you put like a record with a bunch of 808s on, and then you put a record with no 808s on, it sonically feels different.
Yeah.
So for the kids who constantly play rap and they play hip hop, it's hard for them unless it's just killing and has a sick energy to it. They gonna play hip hop. So that's why hip hop is the biggest genre.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with just, I think a lot of the rock guys also never think they have their niche. It's just like jazz. That's why I compare it to jazz. And I feel like if hip hop doesn't, well, hip hop and what we're seeing now, a lot of it is intertwined. It's like a fusion of different styles of hip hop that we're seeing right now, which is cool. But I think at some point, if that doesn't grow into something, the traditional hip hop will be something that's some relic music. You know what I mean? Or a niche thing. It always does that. You know what I mean? It's people who still listen to techno, but it's not as big as it was, or drum and bass or dubstep or blues. Like, I think everything has its thing, and I just think as a musician, if you can float around it and you could swim in those waters, you're gonna be successful. I just think that like when you start putting things in the box, you start trying to put in a box, I feel like that's where we lost.
See like, that? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like the bands that do well, like the guys who do well, are like and still continue to be, fun and creative, are the guys who just mix it all together. Like Tyler the Creator, he'll have a festival and he'll have himself on there, and then it'll be Trash Talk, and then it'll be, Frank Ocean, which is way much more chill than both of those groups. Yeah. And then maybe like Kanye is like, what? You just had a punk band, you had Tyler, you got to do that because you want these kids to see these different styles of music, but you also got to understand that, from the rock perspective, I feel like rock perspective has always been like, let's be rockers, you know what I mean? We're rockers, you know what I mean? And that's cool. Or I'm punk rock, I'm just punk rock, and that works to them sometimes. But I feel like now the hip hop culture is intertwined with rock.
Yeah.
It's intertwined with, with even country, you got Little Nas. Yeah. So it's like these things are like fusion everything, fusion food, fusion music. I'm a fusion. I love so many different styles of music, Yeah. So you have to actually promote music in that way. That's why Coachella was able to do well. And these festivals, like Austin City Limits, they do well because they promote to every single genre of music.
Yeah.
And I think when musicians start, you know, performing and thinking every genre of music and every crowd, I think that it will expand. But it's hard to expand when you're just like in this one. That's why the jazz thing used to bother the hell out of me, because I used to be like, why is everybody got to be in a suit? Why does everybody got to be quiet in the club?
Right.
Why is everybody like, why can't I smoke backstage? Like, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I was like, I don't want to be here. And so I gravitated towards being in the rock circuit or playing hip hop and playing just anything, you know, anything but stuck up people, you
Right.
know. And I'm not saying everybody that does jazz is stuck up, but a lot of y'all are stuck up. I'm gonna keep it solid. Y'all are stuck up, you know, and it's okay. I guess it's some elegant, you know, sophisticated music thing going on. But like for me, it just doesn't really go with like the way the world is. Like the world is like really like sporadic, and people got this energy. You want to go to the club and get that out. So I used to want to when I go do music, I want to be like, I want to release something. I know the horn players be releasing, they be soloing all night, but you know, I don't
That's
know.
But I think the point you're making is really important, because I think that's where hip hop and even country and pop music, they deserve credit, because
Mm-hmm.
country, I mean, country changed with the times. Country embraced a lot of the new production elements that just to try and forge ahead and do something new and unique. Like, I think country deserves credit for that, and hip hop
Yeah,
is maybe the greatest example of that. Like, hip hop is the most, I think, trailblazing kind of genre in that way, because you have
yeah,
Kendrick, you have Kanye, you have all these people kind of bringing an influence from jazz, like you say, and like all these different elements. I even hear like classical influence in certain,
mm-hmm.
I've heard Frusciante produce a hip hop record that has influences and like, you know, samples from classical records. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Man. So the other thing I wanted to ask you is, when you were talking about the instrument companies, um, what would you do? Like, I know you say they should be promoting to the youth. Like, what would you do to make things like rock music, or just the ability to play an instrument, like, relevant and cool again? If you were like the CEO of Ibanez or whatever it is.
Well, now it's like, I mean, some of the stuff that I would have did would have to been done before COVID. Like now, it's like at the before COVID, if I was them, I would have just messed with the guys who are young doing it and killing, and the guys who are relevant. Like it's like skateboarding. It's like, you know, we all appreciate Tony Hawk. We get it. We know
Yeah.
Tony Hawk was the man, but we don't want to see Tony Hawk on Thrasher every other month.
Yeah.
Like it's just weird. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And these companies have just like they have stayed with tradition forever. You know what I mean? Like you'll see them put a Jimi Hendrix poster on something, and they wouldn't even have gave a guitar to Jimi Hendrix. They just use them. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just kind of how they roll, because they don't know what works, because they're not really good at marketing. You know what I mean? So I would have messed with guys that were really good. I would have put teams together. Like if I'm a drum, if I'm a drum company, I'm gonna have a team. I'm not gonna have 1,000 people that I'm just giving drums to, hoping that somebody sees this drum set on the Bruno Mars tour. You know
Right.
what I mean? These guys are gonna have to be able to play. You know what I mean? I used to ask them, I was like, is this about who I play for or how good I am? And that question used to always kill them, because I'm like, okay, if it's how good I am, well, I work my ass off, and it's how I play for. I'm like, dude, I just played in front of 200,000 people. What do you want me to do? And
Yeah.
so I used to worry. I used to wonder what was the prerequisite to get these companies to market you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because they had access to it. And after the internet just started blowing up, they couldn't control it. You know what I mean? They couldn't control who was marketing themselves, because they were doing it themselves, and they also didn't know how to do the internet. And now that we only have the internet, most of the majority of the companies, they promote and market kids by copying their videos off Instagram and reposting them.
Right.
And I think that it's like it makes it where they don't have to try. They don't even have to try to market it, because you're giving them everything they need to market, and they say, "Man, I'm gonna use your video. I'll send you a splash." Well, it's like a little symbol, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
you're like, "Thank you," and then they put your video up and pray they sell some symbols. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
just what these companies. That's kind of like just the way they go, right? And that's not just like drum companies. That's everybody. And
Yeah.
I think right now, I don't think people have much of a choice. But before, and even maybe later, you know, I think that companies should think about what they're doing. Like, you know, stop playing nepotism so much.
Yeah.
I used to think things were like, I thought certain things were racist. I was like, is this racist? And I was like, no, it's probably not racist. It's probably nepotism. You know what I
Huh.
mean?
Wow.
Maybe it's not race. Maybe this dude was a fan of this guy for his whole life, and he finally got a job at this company. Like I was like, I had to think about it differently. I just don't. I still at this time, go back and forth with understanding of why these guys do what they do. Just
Yeah.
because I don't think like that, and but at the same time, I don't have a company also, so
Right.
I just think that when it comes to music and kids, you have to market it to them, and music is not being marketed to kids in a way that they want people to create it. They want people to digest it. They want people to hear all this crazy lyrics, but they don't want people to create it. That's not like their intention. Their intention is for people to hear it. So that's why you'll hear the WAP song, and she won't even play it for her kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like, you know what I mean? That's the interest in music for
Yeah.
music industry. Their industry is let me give it to you, let me brainwash you with a bunch of weird shit.
Yeah.
That's the higher level people. That's what they think. You know what I mean? The majority of musicians just want to play music,
Yeah.
and you got those guys who, they want to play music, but not all of them are amazing. So they come up with little gimmicks and shit to make the shit be tight, and
Yeah.
that's cool too.
Sure.
But I just think for the overall game of music, you gotta keep kids interested to them making it. You
Yeah.
want better music, you gotta put you gotta put more and invest in more kids to actually be producing it and being musicians. You gotta invest in kids.
Yeah. It's so strange that I've never heard anyone say that, particularly like in the business of like making instruments or marketing them or promoting them. But it seems so obvious. Like you should be. I mean, I guess because the idea of playing a physical instrument is sort of something that's like, I don't know, it's becoming less relevant as opposed to being a DJ or a producer or something like that. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, why not promote to kids? That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, if
It's
you
weird.
want kids, if you want kids to be like, if you want kids to play video games, you come out with, something that they can grasp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just obvious. If you want people to do it, you got to introduce them to it. And like, it was weird. This guy asked me, he was like, "Did God give you a gift, or did you just practice?"
Huh.
And I was like, I guess I don't know. I think to me, the gift is the understanding of what it is. Like if you never see a drum set, you ain't gonna want to play it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And that's what I had when I was young. I was in church and I saw people playing music. So it made me understand what a choir, three-part harmony, very young,
Yeah.
or a drum set and bongos and congas and an organ and piano. I knew what that was very young, so I knew if I wanted to play piano, if I wanted to play drums. You
Right.
know what I mean? If I never saw that, would I be a drummer? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's just the gift is the information. You know what I mean? People giving you some bar, and then if you're a kid and you really like it, then that's just like that's how I was. I really like playing drums. You know what I mean? If you really like it, that's another part of it that it just makes it amazing because you got something that you know about that you like at a young age and you can work on it. You got
Yeah.
something to work towards. So that's why I'm saying they have to be introduced to music, like the making of it. It's
Yeah.
a company I forgot that makes like a baby synth, like a synth for babies.
Wow.
It's like it's so cool. I seen them at NAMM show. I forgot the name. It looks like it's like white with a bunch of knobs, and it's just super dope because they made a synth for kids.
That's cool.
And like they're not like they're not like a toy company from Target or nothing. Like they're like a legit keyboard making company or manufacturer. So I thought that was dope.
Yeah.
And like when I was young, I had a kid's drum set from Remo called a Remo Junior Pro. And it was like a drum set that you literally couldn't break. You could like change the drum heads. And it was a real drum set, but it was geared towards kids.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of thing is important. You need to be able to inspire the next generation if you want people to actually play instruments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because having they're going to continue to make computers. We got computer music going on all over because they're not going to stop making computers. We have dumps with just IBM computers all over them. You know what I mean? They're going to continue to make machines. So if the machines are everywhere and you're not playing music, you know what I mean? It's like who you think is going to be on the radio?
Yeah. It's going to be pop, right? It's going to be all programmed. It's going to be
Oh
all that.
yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, man. I've never heard someone say it quite like that, but it makes a lot of sense. So then, what I wanted to ask you next was like, because of this pandemic, because of the lockdown, and because of people having more time to themselves that they normally do, um, I'm wondering like, it leaves so many questions open, right? It's sort of like it's a confusing thing to talk about, but nobody really knows what the future is going to bring. But I'm wondering, just based on what we've seen in the past year, like, what do you think a post-COVID entertainment industry is going to look like?
Um, I don't think it's gonna be a post COVID, bro. I think they're gonna move the goalpost as much as they can. But we're COVID 21 at this point. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like they're gonna move the goalpost, man. They're gonna try to make people, do all kind of stuff to get this thing back together. And I personally don't know, but like to me, it's like if you get people to like if people start making a living and they're not touring, it's gonna be hard to be like, oh, you need a vaccine to tour. You know what I mean? So
yes,
I think that I also can't see thousands of people wanting to be in the same room,
yeah,
and then I can't see insurance companies trying to insure that because I mean everyone's gonna sue if they get sick.
yeah,
Um, I just don't see it right now for a minute because, like, to be honest with you, I mean, I think right now is a good opportunity for musicians and artists, to actually, look at their deals, look at the money you made in this time, and think about if it's fair. You know what I mean? Think about
yeah,
if you think it's cool for somebody to get a penny. Think about if is your song worth a penny a play? Just think
yeah,
about that, and then think about how much money you make for each song played. And if you getting a percentage of a penny, when that percentage of a penny is real low, think about how many plays you need to equal how much money you spend on your record.
yeah,
And then think about if that's all like if that's a come up or is that like a flyer? You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
I feel like I feel like at this point these albums are flyers. You know what I mean? It's a flyer to the show. You know what
They
I mean?
are.
Or it's a flyer to buy my shirt, or it's a flyer to check something else out. Like, because right now it's no one's making money off the music they're creating. They're making money off the let's say what they get from the record, the response, and people want to hear your music, and like so I think that's dope too. But I think that if you're manufacturing music, you should get paid for it. And I think that we haven't put up enough fuss about it, like
Yeah,
especially the people who are making records. I mean, if we're all making records in the house, I mean, if you making 1,000 records, in a year, I'm sure people are doing more than that. You doing all that? I mean, you should get paid for it. You know what I mean? You're spending a lot of time making beats. You're
yeah,
spending a lot of time, practicing and getting sounds and listening to samples and listening to singers and mixing them and mastering and all that. It takes art. It takes all that a lot of time, and I don't feel like the system that sells music is reciprocating to the artists and to the musicians. They're
yeah,
robbing us basically. So it's like, I don't really understand how we all sitting back and just taking it. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to like go and fight myself by myself. You know what I mean? At the same
sure,
time, but I do sit there and just be like, man, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. I don't get it. And I think, with that being said, that's also hurt rock too,
yeah,
because a lot of people who came up and did well before the digital age and the big boom of the internet, those guys were selling real records, so they made real money. So it's hard to get them to come out the house for a little bit of nothing.
yeah,
People who made $1 million a tour, they're not going to come out on tour for $200,000. They rather sit in their house.
right,
So it's like a lot of people who would have continued to be active, they got squashed by just like the way the industry is, the way the money thing is set up. So
yeah,
a lot of people diversified. You know what I mean? They just they'll do something else. They'll put their money into another business and just been a rocker. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's all the way the business model is set up, and it doesn't really benefit us. You know what I mean? I'm a diehard musician, so I'm gonna do it anyway. But at the same time, I know that it doesn't benefit us.
yeah. And it's true, man. I completely agree. And you certainly are a diehard musician. And that's part of why I wanted to talk to you because I think your take on this the pandemic and how that's affecting touring and how it's affecting the industry and the model is really interesting. But even like along the lines of what you're saying, when I read the news article that Bob Dylan had sold his entire catalog for $300 million, my first thought was, I know $300 million is a lot of money, but for Bob Dylan's catalog, I think that's kind of fucking crazy, in my opinion. Like, he wrote The Times They Are Changin'. He wrote Blowin' in the Wind. He wrote like some of the greatest songs ever written. And I get it. He's 79 years old. I get it. He's not touring. I get it. But it's weird. And then you see people like Lil Wayne do the same thing for $100 million. You see Stevie Nicks do the same thing. Like, it makes me wonder if these people can see the writing on the wall and like, dude, this is the amount of money that you can make, and we're fortunate enough to have, accomplished this great catalog, and we're gonna cash in on it and just, take our chips and just get the fuck out of the casino. That's what it feels like.
I mean, I think some people just, it's like the stock market. Some people want to play the long game, and some people want to play the short game.
Right.
I think, and I think some people be in debt. You know what I mean? It's like some people be in huge amounts of debt.
That's true.
But like, I just, I don't know, man. For me, I know that they're going to use his music for movies, and they're going to use his music for like commercials, and they might use that shit for the fucking Super Bowl commercial. They spent $3 million on the Super Bowl commercial. Had the songs playing through the Dorito commercial. It'd be looking crazy. But that's just how they are, bro. And I mean, if 300,000, if 300 million, right? 300 million is, how you feel, that's how you feel, bro. I know they're going to make a lot of money off it, but I don't think anybody's going to make 300 million off it by themselves. You know what I mean? I think a group of people might make billions off it, but I can't see one person making 300 million. So I think he might have been thinking like that. And it's like, you might have an investment that might be going to make you as much money as they're going to make off yours. Some people see, Lil Wayne, he has Drake and Nicki Minaj under Young Money. So those are two of the biggest artists. So it's like, for him, it's like, maybe he has an idea that we just don't see pictures on the wall. Lil Wayne always be doing some stuff business-wise that I'll be like, that's weird. But I also know that, like, Wayne is a prodigy. And he's like a, it would, the way rap consists right now, it would be no hip-hop rap, nothing without Lil Wayne. Not like it is right now. He started this whole wave. He's the grand wave. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't see what he sees. You know what I mean? But I'm not Wayne. But I know Bob Dylan, they're going to put his stuff all over movies. Yeah. They're gonna have a movie about him. You know what I mean? Same with Wayne. They're going to have movies about him. They're going to have his music all through it. Yeah. But I don't know. These people, man, they got to do what they got to do. I wouldn't have did it, but I don't know.
I feel the same way. But like, so you're saying Lil Wayne, he has like an imprint or something where he's working with Nicki Minaj and the other artists?
He has his own label.
Okay.
He's had his own label, though. He's the one who signed Drake and Nicki Minaj.
Drake and Nicki Minaj, wow.
Yeah, they're under Young Money, so he's like, he's a boss.
Yeah.
I respect him.
That's cool. So, but like that, to me, like I've seen that move before, and so many of the people that maybe like I grew up listening to were, they're amazing musicians, amazing writers, but suddenly there's this thing where like, now they're not in the spotlight, or before COVID, let's say, like their attention, their effort is not in being in the spotlight because they kind of realize like, no, that the game is like, you want to sign the next thing, right? You want to start writing, producing, engineering. You want to get in like the writing credits for that. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I think before COVID, everybody was fishing too. I just think this COVID thing has made everybody fish more. Everybody, because I mean, this music game goes through these waves, man. You'll have this one wave of Timberland on the radio all day. Then you have the next wave, it's Neptunes on the radio. Or let's go before that. It'd be what's my man's name? Teddy Riley on the radio all day. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then next thing you know, who was after Teddy? Dr. Dre. They did Dr. Dre, right? Yeah. But then I'm just being silly. And then Timberland, right? Neptunes, right? They all get their little time. And then Little John, right? And then next thing you know, Little John. What's after Little John? I can't even think of who after Little John off the radio. Like Mustard or something. Mustard on the beat. Yeah, it was Mustard on the beat. Then
I'm not sure
next thing you know. Yeah, it's just, it keeps going through its wave is what I'm basically saying. So it's like, I feel like, oh man, I forgot your question, bro.
No, it's okay. I mean, I just, like, that whole thing of people who, maybe started their career as like successful artists or like writers, it seems to be this thing that happened. Like I've noticed in the past few years where they're like, no, fuck being the artist. Like I want to get behind the scenes. I want to work with the new, whoever the
Oh,
new crew is, and I want to like push them. You know, that's the thing.
that's what I was saying. Yeah, you want to, cause like you, I mean, cause when you start off, you're working hella hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're working hard to get the thing off the ground, and then after it's off the ground, you're like, okay, I got this off the ground. I worked super hard. Like, do I really want to make beats? Do I want to
sure.
sit there like Kanye? Kanye was after Drake. Let's say that,
Hmm.
and you be like, you sitting there and do I want to make a trillion beats? You know what I mean? Like you get your inspiration changes, bro, when you get money,
Hmm.
and your inspiration changes when you start being an artist and you start blowing up. You start doing shows. Like even like your music changes when you start doing shows. You know what I mean? Because you start seeing what the crowd likes. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So a lot of your music is gonna constantly change. You gotta continue to stay inspired. So you'll see, guys, they're artists, so they'll dabble between art, they'll dabble between fashion. They dabble between these things because hip hop and just culture. Period. It's like if you look at if you see a girl walk in with a cowboy hat and some leather pants and some boots, it's a good chance she listen to rock. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? If you
Yeah.
you know what I mean, or you see some dude in some Supreme, it's a good chance he gonna fuck with some Future. You know what I mean? So it's like at the end of the day, it's like music and fashion and just life, it all is all the same. You know what I mean? That's why you see these guys diversify and they'll be like, I'm gonna make a shoe because shoes and clothes, it's all hip hop culture.
Huh.
So you have to, because it keeps you inspired. You have to continue to do different things because art inspires art. You know what I mean? You drawing on paper, that's gonna inspire art. I mean, it's gonna inspire some kind of other art, music, skateboarding. It's all art forms.
Yeah.
So if you can dabble in these different art forms and continue to profit, you
Yeah.
know, like Lil Wayne, he went and started skateboarding, and then he had a skateboarding like a clothing line. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
he went into a different art form, and then he made some kind of investment into the art form, which inspires your shit that you're already doing. And then maybe like now, I want to put a bunch of skateboarders on stage. So you
Yeah.
see his whole stage setup, and it was just fucking pro skaters on stage.
That's pretty cool.
That's what I'm saying. Art inspires art. So people have to diversify to continue to have fun with it. But
Yeah.
the thing about it is that sometimes it makes you slack up on the music part. You know what I mean? It makes you slack up on things, and not every artist is able to afford a bunch of ghostwriters. You know what I mean? Some of these artists got a bunch of ghostwriters, but before they was making their own beats. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think that like you just have to diversify. I just feel like um I don't think that's the problem. That's what I'm trying to say, Jordan. I
Yeah.
think the problem. I think the problem is the way the industry is set up. Because if the industry wasn't set up like this, people wouldn't be feeling like they have to diversify so fast.
Yeah. That's a really great point, man. So then along the same lines, for you, because you have experienced some of the heights of like playing stadiums. You've experienced like everything from playing clubs to then playing arenas to playing stadiums to like winning a Grammy at 23 years old and being the youngest drummer in history to win, or not to win, but to earn a Zildjian endorsement. Like, what do you do at this point for you to stay inspired? Like, what is the go-to, or is there like a philosophy behind that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I'm saying. Like, I'll go, do art. I'll go and like go fishing. I'll go and like, I'll go, go to gun range and like go shopping, kick with my kids, my family, and I'll go hiking. I'll go cooking. I do everything, and all of it inspires my music because I feel like I am music. You know what I mean? So as much as the more stuff I learn and the more things I get good at, it just opens my brain. It just opens my. It makes it easy to learn. Sometimes like practice learning. Like if
Yeah.
you practice learning new things, it won't be hard for you to continue to learn new things because you know the process.
Right.
If you got a process in which you learn how to another language, you could use that process to another language. So it's like you get better at learning. I just, it's been all kind of weird, books and papers people send me since like all this political stuff, and I just read it, and I'm like, man, a lot of stuff I knew. I'm like, man, now I know that you can sue and indict somebody for anything, and it don't mean shit. You know what I mean? Some of the stuff I seen, I'm like, damn, as a black man, I've always thought like, if you indict me, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? I see people get indicted for stuff. I'm like, it's not that bad. He's still around.
He's still around.
Yeah. So it's like, the more things you learn, you get to maneuver a little bit different.
Right.
I think it's important. I just think that like, you have to also, as a person, man, it's all about evolution. And you can't evolve if you don't learn other things. Because sometimes you max out at a period, or you max out, you'll have little steps. And like your drumming will go here and then plateau and then go here and then plateau. And it'll continue to do that. You know what I mean? As long as you're playing drums in a consistent way. But it does plateau every time that you go up. You know what I mean? So it's like, so to continue to go up, you have to it's a period of time of something that has to happen. Yeah. Maybe you need to, have some more experiences. Maybe you need to go through a breakup. You know what I mean? You'll see a person making a bunch of happy songs. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, they go through a breakup. And then they go through this plateau in life where they figure it out that, man, they got to really rely on music in themselves. They rely on music in themselves. They go up again. You're like, oh. And then it's like, that's just the evolution of human is you keep your foot going behind another and you keep it pushing.
Yeah. That's beautifully said, man. I feel the same way about like, it benefits me, I've noticed, to work on things that I'm curious about or passionate about, but that I'm not good at, right? So I feel like music is something, for whatever reason, like I've worked at it very hard for a very long time, as you have. You're an incredible example of what's possible when you're dedicated to something. But for me, like to do something not musical, to work on painting, which I'm a terrible fucking painter, but like I love painting, and it's inspiring. It like you say, it kind of broadens your experience, and it brings something new to when you do create music.
Yeah, you have to have it. If you don't have it, you'll lose it. You'll be like a weirdo. You can't do anything too much. And it's all gonna make everything better. Sometimes like I've been on this kick where I'm like, man, I want to go fishing. I live like by a lot of water, so I'm like, I want to go fishing. And like now it just makes me want to do other things, and I appreciate it because sometimes you need to get out the music bubble. You know what I mean? The music bubble can be like, especially now, like sometimes, like because the music all in the computer. Like you listen to the music in the computer.
Yeah.
You make the music. You record it to the computer.
Yeah.
You sell it on the computer. You promote it on the computer. You know what I mean? You check who liked it on your computer. You know what I mean? It's like you got to get away from that and then create music. I think I like to not create music looking at a computer. You know what I mean? I like to create music on drum machines and on my drums. And so it's like, I don't know. I think you need to decompress and you need to have different life experiences.
Yeah, I completely agree. So the only other thing that I could think to ask is, because this show is like so centered on art and forging new models for aspiring artists in whatever artistic medium they're doing. And I'm really like, I'm looking forward always to like having these conversations, and like I really enjoy having these conversations, and I want to impart something useful to someone who's looking to trailblaze or do something different, or any of these things. So like, is there one piece of advice maybe that you would give your, say, 16-year-old self that would help you prepare for the entertainment industry or music or any of the things that you've experienced in this world?
I guess, man. I mean, I feel like my 16-year-old self,
or 18, or when you start.
I wouldn't even listen to myself.
Yeah.
18, I wouldn't even listen to me. I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, like I don't want to hear that, fool. Like, I don't know. Like, if I'm 18, you know what, dude? The one thing that I did that I really appreciate myself doing is I didn't listen to nobody. Like, I had people telling me like what to do all the time. Like, don't drop out of school. Because I dropped out of Berklee School of Music. Wow. I was out. I was like, I'm out. People was mad. All my family, hella people was mad. I didn't care. I had like a full ride to school, and I went there for 2 years, and I was like, I'm out of here. I cannot live in Boston. I don't want to be at this school. I gotta go. I want to play music. I'm like, Tony Williams was playing music at 14. He was on tour.
Yeah.
17, he was on tour. I need to be out of here.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is a waste of time. I'm not, because really I just wanted to play. You know what I mean? I knew I wanted to play, and I would have did that same thing.
Right.
I did that the very same thing. Yeah, I would have did it because it was smart. Like I lived how I wanted to be, like what I wanted to do. Like I always wanted to play music, and I've always wanted to play with the baddest people. And for me, that is like I set out to do what I wanted to do. Like as much as I got a lot of life to live because I'm still young.
Yeah.
I did a lot of shit that I really, really wanted to do. So now it's like, how do I do things that I want to do again? You know what I mean? How do I do them in a smarter way? Like making new goals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of like thinking about my old self. Like it's like that's irrelevant to me because it's like right now it's like you couldn't even think about this time of you before COVID. You'd have been like, what? You know what I mean? You'd be like, it's gonna be a lockdown. You ain't gonna be able to do shit for a year. All the clubs gonna be closed. You'd have been like, yeah, right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like you can't even perceive that. You know, I had this girl. She told me. She's a financial planner. She was like, bro, it's all about what you do right now.
Wow.
And that's how I feel. And I feel like with the youngsters that's, listening, it's all about what you do right now. You know, you can't think about that right now. You got to do what you're doing and keep it pushing. Like, right now kids, they only have the internet.
Right.
So I feel like if you're going to be on the internet and you're trying to do it on the internet, you're trying to make this be a thing, you got to be the most craftiest dude doing it.
Yeah.
Unless you the baddest dude doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you the baddest player, you don't even need to turn on Pro Tools. Right. But if you ain't that good, you better have some crafty gimmick way to do it, man. Because like right now, a lot of people are looking like the same thing just because it's so much. It's like so much in the same. It's like you have to figure out a way to reinvent yourself and make it different and entertaining and inspiring. And make it in a way that people love it, marketing schemes, just ways to give it to people, I remember having, just like the idea you go to a restaurant and they give you a cookie at the end that you can read. You know how good that felt as a kid? You know what I mean? You'd be like, man, when this is over, I'm about to get those cookies. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah.
I'm about to get, It's like that. It's like people, that was a marketing scheme. It was literally a marketing scheme, but it worked. You know what I mean? Everything they do, they put a little fortune cookie in it, and it make you get a little bit inspired and make you be like, man, next time I go there, I gotta get these fortune cookies. Did you get a fortune cookie? You didn't get one? Oh, let me give you one. Now everybody want a fortune cookie. So that was marketing, And like it's a lot of artists that I appreciate marketing, like Tierra Whack, amazing marketing. Her got great marketing. Who else got really good marketing? It's a bunch of people. I can't even think of everybody.
Yeah.
But it's just about marketing at this point and like being able to make music that people like, and are inspired by. Hopefully, they'll take their time. Everybody got ADHD, so hopefully they'll take their time to listen to the whole song. You make a 6-minute song now, you better hope somebody listen to all 3 minutes. People don't got no. People's minds is gone, bro. I'm telling you, it's just too much coming from the internet that is not necessarily real. That is hard, bro. I feel for people who starting right now. You know what I mean? I feel for people who are like, 19 and blazing. You know what I mean? They're like, man, I'm not being able to utilize this like I would if this shit wasn't closed.
Right.
So I feel for people, and so I don't know, man. Do whatever makes you happy and try to stay inspired through this time.
Yeah. Beautifully said, man. That I think that is really valuable because I was expecting more of an answer in the realm of music, but what you said was way more insightful because it delved into like promotion and marketing and like business philosophy. That's exactly what people I think would need to hear. Like a genius virtuoso kind of young, kid needs to hear that, because that was like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying it because even if it's a bunch of geniuses all on the internet.
Yeah.
It's everybody is a genius, man, because nobody's going to show themselves in a bad light on the internet. Right. So everybody got a 1-minute genius clip. You know what I mean? Everybody a genius. But you got to figure out a way to promote your genius in a way that can be, people can gravitate towards you, man. One guy that I want to mention is a genius, man, and he figured out a way to make two people. that made people just gravitate towards them was is Mono Neon
Hmm.
and
He's sick.
and my man Thundercat. The reason
Thundercat's
why I
sick.
mentioned Thundercat is Thundercat didn't have an Instagram. Thundercat didn't have an Instagram until like last year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He did it all on Twitter and just being him and playing music. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think, and I know him, so that's really him. You know what I mean? That's how he is. And like,
Yeah.
same with Mono Neon. That's him, bro. You see Mono Neon walking in at a bookstore, going to the bookstore, looking at the magazine aisle. He gonna be in that same outfit, man. And I think it's important, man, to just be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself and just introduce people to you in crafty ways, man. You don't got to be a different person. I'm just saying, like, you have to like market yourself to people and put yourself out there and
Yeah.
not be so afraid and do it in ways that are fun to watch.
That's beautifully said, man. Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's an inspiring note to end on. And I just want to say, I love you, Thomas. Thank you for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
It's all good. All right, man. I love you, Jordan. You be safe, bro.
You too, man. Thank
Peace.
you. See ya.